that's enough of me. We have a wonderful panel about the NEAR Governance Forum. And I'm going to introduce your wonderful moderator, who I think is actually slightly taller than me. Yeah? We'll find out, Gus. Come on. Come on. This is Gus Friis of NEARWEEK.
Yes! So hello everyone. Welcome to this first session on the last day of NEARCON. Today we're going to talk about NEAR Digital Collective. And I say it that way and not NDC, because I feel in this discussion it's important we are not just using abbreviations and really make it accessible for people who perhaps are not as much as you guys, like following NDC all the time. For this session, we're going to have 55 minutes. We're going to divide it into like two main pieces. The first piece is going to be us. First, we're going to hear about you guys. We're going to hear about the purpose of the body you represent, a bit about you guys, a lightning talk, about 3 minutes each. And in the second half, we will hear about what you have to answer for questions from the audience. And that's an opportunity for everyone in here. Thanks for showing up. That you can ask what's on your mind, and if we have nice, polite answers, we will answer politely. So looking forward to conversation. We all have good intentions, so there's been a lot of debate recently around a lot of things in NDC, but I'm sure we can have a very nice conversation. I don't want to speak much myself. I can just say my name is Gus. I work at NEARWEEK and also Building Heroes. Not too relevant for this conversation. How I got into this field originally of blockchain in 2016 was actually because of governance. I'm a political science student and very active in the NEARWEEK system. So governance, both from the old world, centralized and decentralized variations, I find very interesting. Enough about me. So Cameron, why don't you tell a bit about yourself and like the house you're in now, or the body you're in, and what's the purpose of that?
Great. So, hey everybody, my name is Cameron Dennis. I've been working in the NEAR ecosystem for the last 3 years or so, specifically at NEAR Foundation, Pagoda, or NEAR Inc. before, and I represent the House of Merit. I'm one of 15 elected people, so this body is primarily responsible for providing recommendations to the Council of Advisors on how a budget should be spent, and we are the ones to sort of be more forward-facing with these grassroots DAOs, these organizations that are applying for money through the NDC. So we essentially try to filter them and make recommendations to the budget of the Council of Advisors. And so, Blaze will probably tell you a little bit more about the COA, Council of Advisors.
Do you want to swap?
But in a nutshell, they define the what, we define the how. So they say we need these things done, and we are like, okay, great, this is how we're going to go about it, this is how much money we're going to need, and this is how we're going to spend it. So we'll dive more into like actually what's gone on thus far, but I think that sums it up.
Yeah, thanks. AVB, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm AVB from the Transparency Commission. So in my background, I actually have studied law, technically a lawyer in Australia. And yeah, I mean, a guru would say at the top of the mountain that the universe is conspiring to help me achieve my mission, which is to see NEAR succeed. They sent me to law school. It was torture for 7 years. And now I somehow ended up in the Transparency Commission. So the Transparency Commission resembles a legal body to a large extent. It's there, as the name implies, to make sure that there's accountability as we move to these new forms of governance. And yeah, it's just an oversight body. We've put in a lot of work to try to define what the processes are, what the scope are, and yeah, we'll be forthcoming with over 100 pages worth of frameworks to help us deal with some outstanding issues.
All right, yeah, so hey everyone, I'm Blaze. I've been with NEAR since before mainnet, started as part of the validator competition, joined that, became a validator on NEAR. I've been an active community member and contributor to the ecosystem in general, then co-founded Cheddar, which is a small yield farm focused on helping provide opportunity for small wallet balances on NEAR, and then the champion of the NDC in terms of just getting V0 governance to a point where we could launch to where we are now. So now, as part of that, a member of the Council of Advisors, which is really a 7-member council focused on advising the House of Merit, which is where Cameron is. So the House of Merit is about budget allocation and about establishing governance processes. The the Council of Advisors is somewhat like an oversight council to that, so they have the ability to veto budget, to veto policy changes that they might make, but also really to more work with the HOM and the rest of the governing bodies to assure that governance is aligned to the strategic direction of NEAR and that we're actually deploying funding and deploying NDC to grow and sustain the ecosystem. So yeah, glad to be here, and thanks everyone for joining.
We thank you all for your public service in those chambers. Thanks a lot for that. So yeah, thanks for that summary. Before we go into like more debates around specific topics, I think it would just be, from my own curiosity, quite interesting to hear each of you around as well, hearing from your side. Cameron, starting with you, what do you think works well in NDC in the whole as right now, and what don't you think like works so well? What's the main challenges?
Yeah, so just for context, the NDC was first created by a group called the Governance Working Group, or the first legal framework. And so the framework was intentionally designed, and I think AVB and Blaise can talk more about this, but to be sort of broad to start. And the whole goal is for the House of Merit to kind of refine it and actually submit like formal bylaws and how these things operate and how voting works and the whole bit. And so I would say that has not totally come to fruition yet. The House of Merit is a little bit fragmented right now. And we can also go into why. In a nutshell, for those who did not participate and don't understand how this works, the voting body is essentially anybody that has a crypto in your wallet and went through the I am human verification process, which means you scan your face, and that image then gets uploaded to a GDPR compliant database through this organization called Fractal. And these are the people that are now registered to vote. And they're the ones to decide on who actually gets placed in these different houses. And so that, although it is actually, I think, one of the better approaches, as we've seen in the blockchain space, and I've been in the space for about 6-7 years now, and I've also participated in decentralized governance, normally that doesn't work very well, because those who actually have all the votes can essentially place their people in key offices and do it strategically. So they have majority for when a budget comes through, and they can just essentially approve it and steamroll anyone who disagrees. And so unfortunately, this is kind of what has happened in a way. It's not too far off. It can be fixed, I guess is my point. But right now in the House of Merit, there is a very strong coalition, and they are very coordinated, and so they don't necessarily need to cooperate with anyone else because they can essentially push proposals through and vote, at least internally within the House of Merit, to get them passed. And so what we've seen thus far is decisions being made without the entire House of Merit even participating, because they can just make a proposal, pass it within themselves, and then push it on the Council Advisors. And I feel like that has actually led to less engagement from the people who really are trying to do it for the right reasons, because their voice doesn't really matter. So I think that's something that we definitely need to change in terms of what is going well. I did appreciate the sort of speediness of the Council Advisors coming out with metrics, defining the what. And so that was good. But besides that, we have a lot of work to do. And
with that bridge, let's go to AVB. Same question. What do you think works well? What do you think is not working well? And you can speak for your own body, but you're allowed to speak about the whole.
I'm an individual. Nothing I say is legal advice. If you want to see what works well, I would look at DevHub. And I would split the NDC landscape in several categories, because multiple things can be true at once, and you can mix and match. We may have to revise the voting body, because it is too broad. That may be true. But it may also be true that the majority that got in because they represent the general sentiment of the community. So there's a tension there between finding the right balance of who do we want to participate actively in governance, and acknowledging grievances of the community. The third category, which is where I would focus on, especially with the Transparency Commission, is just the processes. Assuming that the people elected have the mandate and that they do represent some interest in the community, and by the way, most of the House of Merit is actually aligned in what they want to achieve. But we have now our discrepancies in either how to achieve it or just personality clashes, different work modes. So what I personally think should be the priority would be to have very well understood, simple processes so that everyone can be on the same page. Even if you're in a minority, you get your period to discuss, to be heard, case closed, moved on, and it's just having the sense of fairness. We're not going to be able to win all the time. We're not going to be able to have something perfect. We just need to get to the minimum viable trust. Otherwise, the long-term viability of the institution is not there. If we're not able to agree and trust internally, the community is obviously not going to.
Yeah, please go.
So over to me. So the first thing to understand about governance and decentralization is that they are very difficult topics, right? This is something that hasn't been really solved in the Web3 space very well. And so with NDC, we took a completely different approach where we put the community at the heart of governance instead of hiring high-end outside counsel or advisors or making the decision-making in the hands of the founders and the VCs that established the chain. We really engaged the community to begin to develop governance. And in that, there was a lot of challenges. But I would say that this, initial state of governance that we have now, V1, is what we're transitioning to. It's like looking at, live, raw earth, right? And now we've got to shape that earth and create more rigor, more processes, more procedures, as AVB was saying, to make that next version even better. So we know that this is going to be iterative. We know it's going to take time, and we know we won't get it right up front, right? We're just not going to get it right. So I think that's both the power of what we're doing, and it's kind of the the side effect of saying that that's the that it's both the negative and the positive that we're working through. But what is exciting is that we have an active Congress now, right? 29 elected members, elected by the community, right? And so we made the houses as big as they are because we wanted to make sure that we knew that there was a potential for collusion. We knew that, there could be coalitions that formed that tried to take over, the governing bodies. But, the good thing is that we have people like Cameron and other members in these houses because we made them in such a fashion that would be enabled. Now, the other thing that I would say is that, this process that we're going through, it will be bumpy, but, we're going to continue to make things a lot better. And so the idea, like AVB was saying, is how do we grow this voting body? What are the criteria to vote in this next election? What kind of election are we going to build? Those are all the things that we have to work through in very short order. So we've got about 5 months left to deliver a new voting mechanism, to stand up these processes and procedures, to then turn this governance over to whoever the next elected officials are, assuming some of these folks will run as well and still be in the houses for another term.
Yeah, and if I could just add to what Blaise mentioned, because there's a fourth category, assuming that we have all the processes in place. I like the analogy of terraforming because